In my last video there was quite a lot of snow up here. Pretty hard to imagine looking at it now. It's really warm and sunny today, really nice. A bit windy, but I'll take wind before snow now that the spring has started to arrive. I didn't have time to get up here earlier today. It's 4 or 5 in the afternoon now, but I'm gonna make the most of the last few hours of sun that I have and do a little bit of work on the next section of the tree I've been felling. Don't even need the vest today. Might as well lose the hat. Feel a bit naked without the hat, but when it's warm, it's warm. I'm gonna do something I didn't do on the last section that will help me address the problem with the log rolling, and that is cutting flat surfaces for the log to rest upon onto the sleeper logs. Slipped my mind last time, but now I remember, so now I'm gonna do it. Just a little bit of a flat spot there. Now I'm gonna cut the end straight so I have a flat, reliable surface to scribe. There's no way I'm going to be able to edit this out. Well, maybe I can hew it away later. Or I just cut away some extra. Yeah. Well, you don't have to be able to eat off of it. This is the top part of the log, so I know whatever I measure here I can certainly get out from the bottom part, because that's wider. Last log I made 5 inches wide. I'm gonna try the same here as well, although it's further up the tree, so it's a bit smaller. I measure to the center of the log first, make a mark here. Use my level to scribe a plumb line. Measure out from that 2.5 inches on each side, so I make a 5-inch wide beam in the end. It's there and it's there. Then I scribe those. And now I repeat the process down on the far end of the log. A lot of branches on this pine log. The chalk line doesn't stick very well to the pine bark, so you need to take it off where you are going to strike the line. Otherwise you could just leave the bark on until later. A little knife nick gets you a secure starting point for the line. And you pull straight up. You snap it. Now I'm gonna do the scoring cuts. The objective is to cut plumb lines onto the side of the log, almost up to the chalk line. Not quite, because if you go past it you will end up with a smaller dimension log than you were planning to. You will cut up to the line in next part of the process, which is the actual hewing with the broad axe. And if there are any nasty knots, which there is plenty of on this log, try to put your scoring cuts so you cut away those, because then it's much easier to cut off the chunks, the juggling as it's called. I try to cut so I get about a foot of a log in between the V-notches. That's easy enough to juggle off, and it also renders me quite nice firewood in the end. I mean, look at this from last time. It's a bit on the short side perhaps, but it's a substantial piece of firewood. This, it's not waste. Or this. So that's something I tried to obtain. Now the objective is to cut as close to the line here and here without crossing it. Yeah, you don't have to get up to the line that much when you do the juggling. It's a little bit overdoing it. This log isn't wide enough to stand upon, and I'm also pretty fond of my toes. Now I try to cut just outside of this plumb line as well. It was already good enough, more or less, to leave it for the hewing, but anyway, split out a bit on the bottom, but that's because of wonky grain orientation caused by all these big knots. But this is what this log is like. So nothing to complain about, just something to work around. I sure wish I would have gotten out here earlier today. Really lovely day, but I had other stuff to do, so I couldn't. But an hour or so before sunset, juggling the first side of the log. That'll have to do for today. I'll be back up here as soon as I can. It's a new day again. The weather is even more marvelous today than it was yesterday, I have to say. So no need for hats or coats or vests or anything today. a bit tricky getting a perfectly plumb scoring cut. I guess if I could stand upon the log, it would be easier to achieve that. Would be easier to maintain good balance on a wider log. But this position makes it a lot easier to cut the score cuts. In a totally plumb line. It's probably the ugliest scoring cut in history. I'll blame it on balancing on a narrow log. The branches grow pretty much in a circle around the trunk, so it's pretty sure when you see one knot up here that you have another one down here as well, which I have. That's where I'm putting the next notch. When I'm done with the hewing, nobody will know anything about the ugly scoring notches. Apart from those who watched this video, of course. As before, I'm trying to achieve as big chunks as possible. That wants to run inside of the log. So if I keep chopping from this end, I'm gonna have a lot of problems. I'm gonna move and start over from the other side of the log instead. Let's get this first. The grain orientation is all over the place because of all these knots, but that's just kind of log I have to work on this time. Next time I get a log with a straighter grain orientation, this will feel like dancing. Right now it's a little bit like stumbling with two left feet on the dance floor. I never was much of a dancer anyway. I have to work in different positions to work around the knots. If I was to cut straight down when I pass the knot, I would get an ugly tear out in the bottom of the log. So then I have to kneel down and cut from the side instead of from the top. Or maybe I have to cut from the other side a little bit as well. So that's the challenge with a log full of knots. You could also hew it halfway down, or a little bit past halfway perhaps. Then turn it around and do the other side. I'm not doing that here this time. On this part where I have wedged it, I will just cut the line on top and continue the hewing after. This is the side of the log I rough cut yesterday, or juggled. And I guess I was in a bit of a hurry because the sun was setting. So I cut some of the scoring cuts past the line. I might have to just take off a little bit more in the end. Since I haven't removed the dog and the wedges on the other trestle, I can do this. The log will stay put. I'll put them back and remove them on the other trestle later and finish over there. Quite a lot of these scoring cuts are inside of the line. I think I'm gonna have to hew this log to slightly narrower dimension. I'll just strike a new line, take off 1/2 inch here. That should do the trick. I'm going to take off 1/2 inch on both sides, so I end up with a 4 inch wide beam instead of 4.5. I'm pretty sure that my first experimental log was 4 inches, so then I have something that matches it. big knots make the hewing a lot more interesting. Another big knot in the middle of the log, so I have to work from all kinds of angles not to get tear out. So instead of going straight down all the time, I have to come from this side, a bit from the other side, cutting down from the line first. I'm cutting into the knot from as many directions as I can reach in a reasonably comfortable way. I can't really cut from underneath, that's why I could leave this and take it later when I flip the log around, but I'll try and do it like this. It's a bit over the top, checking it with the water level. The plumb bob should be better for this. Just a weight on a string that you rest onto the top edge. And this reacts to all small uneven spots. So it's a bit trickier to get a good idea using that. But I don't have a plumb bob yet, so I'm using this. Now the notch goes away. Isn't that a pretty sight? There's a knot on the end here, so this will probably not be pretty all the way down. Can't really get to this without taking these out. There are really a lot of knots in this log. Probably in the future I'm gonna start doing half at once and then turning it around and do the other half. So I'm cutting into the center of the log from both sides, but I won't do it today. I'm gonna do it all from one side. And then I will do it on another log, so I have something to compare with. After all, I am learning as I go. Yeah, pretty good. Gonna put these back now, so I can take them away on the other trestle. Great. Minor touch-ups that are mostly in my own head, I guess. In the last video, if you saw that, when I went from doing one side to doing the other, I flipped the log around like that, which wasn't that convenient. Much easier way this time, sort of, also to compare two different methods. Or maybe because I just didn't think before I flicked it on the last one. I'm just gonna do it like this. There you go. Now I'm just gonna check the scribe lines with the water level so they are plumb. Wedge the log in, strike a new line and hew this side. A little bit of adjustment. And there we go. It's not exactly a high-tech solution this, but I sort of like that. Now I need to take off some bark again and strike a new line. Crappy chalk line. cheap one. I guess you always get what you pay for, right? The afternoon sun in this spot is really nice. It's gonna be great to keep spending time on this spot. I think I will build some sort of, maybe not a camp, but some benches and perhaps a little roof to put firewood under and a fireplace. After that we'll see. I'm probably gonna use these logs for something like that, but I'm still not quite sure. Anyway, this is it for today. Another log finished. Not finished, I just blocked it as the last one, but I'm not sure I'm gonna do more than this to it. But as I said, I'm gonna start doing this to all of the logs right now and decide later if I'm gonna square them or not. There's a strongly opinionated raven that just flew over my spot here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you will subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out when I post new ones. And I hope to see you then. Until then, goodbye.